Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina. Today we're talking about leaving your job and what to do next with Karli de Panfilis, owner of Flair by KD, a branding and design studio. Fun fact, Karli used to write for Gen 20. So Karli, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to your career path?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. So graduated in 2014 from West Virginia University, and right after graduating, like 2 weeks later, I moved to Oklahoma with my boyfriend, now husband. There, I worked for a small web design company, like right outside of Tulsa, as their PR and content strategist. So basically, what I did there was like I wore a lot of hats because I was right out of college. He kind of just like took a chance on me since my background was in public relations. But I kind of dabbled more into like content writing, blog writing, web design, and that's kind of like where my love for web design kind of started. Um, and then after we lived in Oklahoma, we moved to Minneapolis, where I explored a few jobs. I was not sure what I wanted to do when we moved there. So I actually started one of my first companies. It was Petite Social. So I basically was just managing small business accounts on social media, majority like Instagram and Facebook. While I also like worked at like a local cycle and yoga studio, just kind of to like have some income on the side coming in while I was starting that. And then
And now a word from our sponsors. Do you hate your job? Do you feel like everyone around you has their career together and you're stuck in another soul-sucking job for what feels like 100th time? Are you asking yourself why it's so hard to find work that makes you happy? I want to tell you about my friend Serena and her program, Get Me Out of This Job. She's a career coach, and her program, Get Me Out of This Job, helps you find confidence and clarity in the next steps of your career. Serena helps you build a career around your life instead of you feeling like you have to build your life around your career. And I did her program, and it was life-changing. Before I worked with her, I worked 9-to-5 jobs and just was so miserable. I couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy. I went from job to job. And then after I worked with her, I became an entrepreneur, a writer, an author, a podcaster, and just gave me so much clarity, life-changing. So the best part is mention Gen20 and you get 10% off your coaching package. Head to getmeoutofthisjob.co to learn more or follow her on Instagram at getmeoutofthisjob.
I wasn't really successful with that business. So then I applied for this job at a healthcare media company and got a position basically doing social media writing. So kind of use my background from Tulsa into that. Um, and then I wasn't in that job very long and worked in another job, which was in advertising. So I was a digital media manager. So I did a lot of like paid ads through Facebook and Instagram, did Instagram captions, and I also like shot some content like at the small businesses around town. And then that one was pretty short lived as well because I just was not loving it. So then we were looking to move back to Pennsylvania, like, within the next couple months. So I ended up working at Anthropology, which was amazing. And that was just kind of where I knew I wanted to work with women owned businesses when I was kind of like scheming up my business, what it is today. So just kind of having that opportunity working there kind of fell into like what I'm doing today, which I love. So then we moved back home to my hometown in February of 2019, and then a month later, Flair by Katie was born.
Wow, that is like an amazing career path just to like listen to you talk about everything because I love like one thing I was just jotting down as a note was that you can like consistently pivoted and redirected what you were doing to like pursue what you love and what you felt like you were good at and what you really wanted to do. And so you said you started that in 2019. And so it seems like being an entrepreneur was something you kind of always wanted to do, like you were pursuing that throughout your careers. And I think a lot of people are now wanting to kind of go down that path. So, having had all this experience behind you, what would you share with people who want to kind of do the same thing?
Sure. So yeah, like I said, I've had many jobs out of college, which were probably a lot more than some people, just in a short 7-year span. But I wouldn't change anything. Basically, what I would do is find something you're passionate about and just start it. Like before I started this business, like I said, I started another business and that failed. But I also, on the side, while I had other jobs like in the corporate world, I was still doing like web design on the side. So I just was, doing that stuff on the side. I guess my side hustle, I wanted to turn into something full time.
Mhm.
So for me, when the time came, I didn't really have a business plan. It was just more of like a loose vision. I know
Mhm.
some people, need more planning and like financials and like to look at everything. But I was very fortunate that my husband was very supportive and just kind of was like, just go all in. Now's your chance type of thing. And
Mhm.
I'm very happy that it's all working out. And then I guess another thing would just be to like find a mentor or two that owns their own business and kind of like pick their brain on certain parts. So like I reached out to, like one or two small businesses within my hometown back home. And then as well as like my cousin, I leaned on him a lot because he has owned his own business for like 12 plus years now and just very knowledgeable on like more of like the like business back end stuff, which I'm not very great at. So I don't know, just kind of have a plan or a loose plan at least or vision and just honestly start whether it would be a side hustle at first or if you have the capability to go full time just go for it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I'm a very loose planner kind of person. That's sort of how I started Gen 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Go
In
ahead,
the
Marina.
I was gonna say in the writing community, I'm a writer, Carly, and there's like if you can like plan and outline or you can freestyle.
Hmm.
Like so when you free like if you just go with it as you go, it's called pantsing because you're like literally like putting your pants on as you're like trying to write. So I'm more of a pantser than a planner, but there's like a hybrid version called Plantser, which is silly, but I that's how I approach things with Nicole too, because we run a business together and it's like loose, loose planning, and then you can pivot. And I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful because like we all know that change and transition can be really unsettling. And it sounds like,
Hmm.
I mean, you had that firsthand experience. You were just constantly pivoting as circumstances changed. So, how can we cope with making these changes that we want, but still balance the expectations and goals of how things might go? Because obviously, as much as we plan, nothing ever goes exactly as we plan.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, actually, when I started out in March of 2019, I didn't start as just branding and web design because I actually didn't even have any knowledge in branding. So, that was kind of like where I pivoted. So, I started out
Mhm.
doing more like email marketing and social media management and web design, like things that I had learned over the past 7 years from other jobs. But then after like 9 months in my business, I was like, I literally hated doing social media management for other companies. And I just didn't love it. So I wasn't really putting any effort into my own business's social media accounts where I knew I needed to in order to like grow.
Hmm.
Um, so I honestly just, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in branding. So I took a course on that. And from there, I just, kept leveling up my process and leveling up like things that I could learn. So, I mean, I would just say like don't stop learning and um, definitely set like realistic goals and expectations, but at the same time, like don't allow those to consume you or like your worth. Cause I mean, I feel like to this day, I still, have big goals and dreams, and sometimes they're hanging over my head and I can't, let those stop me from like failing on certain things or putting myself down because I didn't like reach that goal. Um, but also I would just say, as well as like again, like a side hustle versus a full-time gig, just have expectations and goals for that as well. So whether you're doing it on the side while you do have a full-time job, or if you're a full-time stay-at-home mom or something like that, like, and you're still trying to like build something, just like set real expectations and goals for yourself. So you're not feeling so crappy when you don't, you know, hit all of them or at least one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like I've written about this before, like micro goals where you're just setting
Mm,
very small, very achievable goals because one, that keeps you motivated to reach your bigger goals, but two, it's like very realistic. Like they're very easy, quote unquote,
yes.
things that you can and know that you can accomplish on your way to reaching those big goals. And I really think that like especially as you're starting out as an entrepreneur, you like need that boost of confidence like
Yes.
maybe even every single day because it's hard
Absolutely.
out here.
It's
But
hard out here for sure.
but one thing I wanted to dig deeper into as you were talking was when you said like to pursue learning, because I do think that learning and continuing to learn and pivot is so important. So where you're talking about like you knew you need to learn more about branding, like so
Hmm.
say someone's sitting at home and they're like, okay, where do I go to learn about this? So how did you approach learning more about that?
Yeah, so I was following, just a few people within my industry, web design and branding, on Instagram, just to see, like, kind of like what they were up to and like kind of draw inspiration from like the beginning. But I don't, obviously, I don't like to look at other people's accounts now because then comparison and all that bad stuff comes in. But
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I
Mhm.
did find, the girl that I did take my branding course from, and it was just, like, amazing, like, so transformable for my business because once I learned that, like, she also gave you, like, all the tools to begin, like, sending out presentations, like, how she does certain things, so it wasn't more so of just what branding was and, I guess, like, a short version of it, but she,
Mhm.
like, gave a full-blown, like, what branding was, how you can present it to your clients, how to get feedback from your clients, and, like, the different tools that she used, for branding. So I just kind of ran with that once I took that course, and then since then, I've taken a few other courses on different things, but, um, yeah, I don't know where I would be without her course, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think talking about like the process is like one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of like look over when they're trying to like build a business because there
Yeah.
are a lot of parts to it. But really, what comes down to like making you special and like wanting, to offer your services or products to the world, like
Mhm.
is really deeply involved in that process. And I think Marina can probably speak to that too, as she's like developing her writing coaching business
Oh, cool.
where she is like she's kind of working to see like really what her audience wants and needs from her. So like you were saying by adding that branding thing, it like exploded your business.
Mhm.
And people come to Marina with all different kinds of projects and she's really refining like what she doesn't want to do and
Mhm.
how to best serve her community. So I think that's like just a really phenomenal piece of advice to share is to like continue learning and continuing to develop your process.
Yeah.
I would also add, find people who are doing something like Karli, you're talking about. You don't look at other people's profiles on social media because the comparison game is really toxic. But there's like a fine line of finding, like how you're talking about with mentors, or
Mhm.
kind of Nicole and I have a business together, but we also have our own businesses. So we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. And I feel like having the community is so helpful. I mean, Nicole just pitched my business and I was like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm doing that. And so that can be so helpful because I think it is really isolating when you're trying to figure this all out and you can only Google so much. What kind of advice do you have for new entrepreneurs who are getting started?
Yeah. Honest like I'll say like kind of what I did like before, but honestly just start. Like you're not nothing's going to happen if you just sit there and think about it like over and over. Like you're not going to be perfect the first time. No one is. So I would just honestly just say start. Cuz you're going to fail and it's only going to push you further in your business like whichever way you do end up going. Again, set those goals short term and long term, and make them realistic. And then as well, if you are starting to accumulate money, like make sure you're setting your business up as an LLC, like so you're legit. And I know a lot of small businesses that either I've worked with or other designers that I talk to within the community, like they've been in business, quote unquote, for like 2 years, but they haven't set up their business as an LLC. So they're always like shocked when I say that. And I'm like, yeah, you need to like do that now.
Yeah, big mistake. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, yeah, all that like technical back end business stuff can be hard. So yeah, I definitely think that when you're even beginning to start your business, it's worth to invest in like an accountant and like setting up everything correctly because and pay your taxes, everyone.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, and set aside like 30% or more for your taxes.
Hmm.
Especially like that's something I've had. I remember Nicole and I were talking about that one time when I was first starting freelancing, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing that." Uh-oh. And it was
Yeah.
fine, but you'll be in for a shock if you're not
Yes.
preparing
Yes.
yourself. And that's
100%.
yeah, that's kind of like you need to plan a little bit, but be okay with the plan changing. And Carly, I love how you were talking about your first business, Petite Social, and you just like it failed. And I think so often we are so afraid to admit that something's failing, but
Mhm.
really when we fail, it's like has such a negative connotation, but it really just means like you tried it, it didn't work, you learned, you move on.
Yeah.
And so like what other big business learning lessons have you had so far that you can share?
Yeah, so obviously that was the first one. As well as when I started Flair by Katie, like I said, I started doing web design, social media management, and email marketing. And that was just kind of where I felt like I hit like a plateau. And since it was only me working and I only wanted it to be like me for like the first year or two, I didn't want to, or I couldn't like take on any more social media accounts. And I was like, how can I grow this business that I can work with other companies like on a monthly basis and then kind of like tie their project up and give them the resources and tools that they need. So that's kind of like where the branding came in. So I guess just like pivoting where you need to. And then also investing in your business. Like that's when I honestly started to see so much growth and potential for my business. Like I said, I took the branding course. I took a Shopify course. I invested in a business coach, which was like the largest thing that I've invested in, and I it's literally been like so eye opening after I finished 6 months with my business coach. So just investing in your business when you can.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious with a business coach, what do you feel like were the biggest growth catalysts that helped you see more potential for yourself?
Yeah, so probably I would say like 9 months ago, I you would never see my face on stories on Instagram like whatsoever. I was terrified of like speaking to my camera, which I know sounds so silly, but I did not like that. So she kind of got me out of my comfort zone on honestly just like talking to my audience and being like a human.
Hmm.
Um, and also, I would say just kind of like planning the back end of like my content, my messaging, um, as well as like planning out like certain offers that I came out with. Um, Honestly, like she was just there as like a mentor as well, like because I could communicate with her like whenever I needed to through a certain app. But I honestly just think it was more of just like building my confidence, having someone there to basically like cheer me on, but also, you know, put me back in my zone and push me to like where I wanted to go.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And like whether you do that through like a business mentor or a coach, or your community, I think it's really
Hmm.
important to have those people to like propel you forward and also to like help give you ideas from beyond what you can see for your
Yes.
own business because I feel like we spend so much time like so close to our businesses
Hmm.
Hmm.
that it's really hard to like step back and see the big picture and especially like the missing pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you can only figure out what your audience wants by trial and error. So like I had an offering I really wanted to give to my potential clients and audience, but I couldn't figure out how to formulate it. And then
Hmm.
someone emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm this is the kind of coaching I'm looking for. Do you do that?" And I was just like, "Yes, I do. Now I do because I figured out how to ask for it." And it's like
Yes.
sometimes you stumble on those learnings and sometimes you do it really categorically and methodically, but
Hmm.
it's all part of the learning process. And I think there's like a people who want to be their own bosses and have an entrepreneurial life are like a different beast. Like there's a different brain process there, which is awesome, but it can be hard when you're getting started in your early 20s and you're kind of following the more traditional career path. Because I know for myself, I was doing the corporate job, I was doing the traditional career path, and I was so unhappy. And I
Hmm.
just kept, it was like square peg, round hole. I just kept trying to like change jobs to make myself happier. And then I realized, like, oh no, it's because I'm meant to do this. Like, this is how I'm going to thrive and grow. So, and like, no one told me that. I had to figure that out the hard way.
Yeah.
So, Carly, what is something you wish you had learned about having a career when you were in your early 20s?
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't really figure it out until like like 3 years ago, unfortunately, but that's okay. I mean, like I said, I was just kind of bouncing around from job to job, not really happy. I mean, it was just
Hmm.
honestly going into clock in, clock out type of thing.
Relatable, relatable.
Yeah. So I guess I would just say, like, looking back when I just started out, you know, being more in tune with like what really makes you happy and excited to like wake up every day and not just going in to clock in somewhere. Like truly, obviously in every job there's going to be things that you don't like. Like right now, in for myself, like I still, I don't enjoy accounting. I dread it. I dread doing taxes. So like there's always going to be.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Corvus Botanicals. Consumers are climate conscious now more than ever. Folks are looking for products with a higher purpose that serves the needs without hurting the planet. Corvus Botanicals specializes in sustainable self care products like plastic free soap and shampoo bars, lip tints in compostable tubes, and clean burning soy candles. Corvus Botanicals believes that connection to and care for the planet can start with our personal care routines. That's why they are committed to zero waste product packaging, responsible ingredient sourcing, ethical supply chain, carbon offsets, and planting a tree with every order. Join us in doing what's right for the earth and good for your skin. You can find Corvus Botanicals at corvusbotanicals.com, CorvusBotanicals.com, or on Instagram at Corvus Botanicals.
Something that you don't love, but I would say finding something that is majority of what you do love, like try to find that in what you're doing, and then it might take you a few years to figure out what exactly you want to do, and that's okay. Like it's not like you're on a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of on your own timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, and hearing you say that, I think it's like you should really listen to your gut feelings when you know that you are meant for more and made for more,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just if we let ourselves be open to all the things that are possible, it feels a little bit less intimidating to trip along the way.
Yeah.
Um, but I love hearing your story, Carly, because I relate to it so much. And Nicole started her business right out of college, and she was
Mhm.
the only friend I had for so long who was in a non-traditional career path and who ran her own business. And I would think to myself, like, man, I wish I could do that, but I'm on this path. And
Yeah.
it was finally like, oh, I can change lanes. Like, okay. And it's like more, I think more and more people are starting businesses because, the hashtag hustle culture or because of 2020's
Hmm.
shitstorm or
Yeah.
for lack of better words or things like that. And I have, like, Nicole was my first friend to have a business. And now I want to say like 50% of my friends have their own businesses or they're like side hustles they dream of growing to be full time, which is so empowering and so neat.
Yeah.
So I know people are going to want to continue to follow along. Carly, where can people find you if they want to see you regularly?
Sure. So Instagram is like my favorite place to be. So you can find me there at Flair by KD. And then my website and everything will be on my profile, but that's just at flairbykatie.com, which I will also be launching my new website early next month.
Ooh.
So look out for that.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. And we will link all of Karli's info in the show notes. And this has been another episode of the 1020 podcast. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.